China. You have cited China as I just want to pull out your own words here. You've said that they are very much moving into our sphere on a lot of levels, but the one area that you seem to be very concerned about is space. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I mean, you see it actually in a lot of different areas, and frankly, through their own plans and their own statements that they're making. Whether it is the investments that they're making around the world in many things, whether it is their Belt and Road Initiative, their decision to do a lot more in technology advancements, emerging tech to include space. So space is sort of just one of many of the different places, but we know that there's an appetite for many, many countries because of the importance of space, to be able to have more assets in space, to be able to do more with space. We see in this country how reliant we are on space. A lot of things, whether it's the GPS and just getting from place to place, or a lot of other systems that we use. And so we know that they're moving in that area, and they would want to counter our very, our very, I would say, robust system, our very, our not only our government-owned system, but even the commercial systems that are in there. They aspire to be able to do as much in that environment as we're doing.
Which means what?
Which means there's
cyber attacks?
Oh, well, that's a
given.
No, in space or not in space.
Yeah.
We see, that is definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to threaten sort of the status quo. And cyber attacks is certainly one of them, whether it's cyber attacks in space or cyber attacks on the ground. And so we see the desire to be able to sort of control what is happening, not only in their own country, but in other parts of the world. And some of that does include looking at where they can invest in the technology space to exceed our capabilities or exceed what they think our capabilities are, or to surpass those capabilities. And
what
so
are some
we're sort of
examples of that?
Artificial intelligence, machine learning. Both the Chinese government and the Russian government have stated that to be leading in that area is to sort of lead the future. You see investments in quantum information science and what we can do with that very, very interesting technology. You see a lot of investments and stated investments, on both countries, in that area. Some of gosh, I'm thinking of the other ones. Those are probably the two main ones, but in other aspects of the world, automation in general, where do you see those things like that? Whether it is investments in biotechnology is another one that we've also heard both countries decide they want to invest in.
Dr. Dixon, in a recent speech you asked, how can democratic societies prevail in this ongoing struggle with authoritarian regimes? I'd like you to answer your own question.
Well, part of it is also, part of it is increasing trust with the public. Part of it is that transparency. We have to realize that there is a threat out there to democracy. There's a lot of countries who are more authoritarian in nature, who are seeking to have their norms be the norms that cover the world. That's not a world that I want to live in. I think the democratic ideals, the values underpinning democratic countries are really important. The ones whether it's competitiveness and opportunity, the ones where people have a choice of being able to choose whether they do one thing or the other. Those are things that this country has professed and that we really do need to continue to defend. So we need to talk about it. We need to look at all of the tools we have at our disposal, whether it's diplomatic, whether it's economic, whether it's military, intelligence, as being able to provide those policymakers who are making decisions in those spaces with the tools they need to. So working together, government, public, industry, to make sure that the ideals and values that we profess as members of a democratic society, making sure that we are holding true to that we're finding ways to make sure that as we go out into the international world, in the world and do business, that we're continuing to profess those ideals, that we're continuing to act on those ideals. We need to be able to counter those individuals who think that having more control over their populations, less opportunity, less competitiveness is a good thing, that's not how we want to be. And making sure that as we go forward with international norms, that they look more like the values that we profess than the values that an authoritarian country would profess.
Your position forces you to be a historian, essentially. Where are we on that trajectory? Where are you feeling more hopeful, less hopeful? Where are we?
I'll say it this way. As I travel around the country and meet with, for example, students at different universities, talk to them about how they see the world, I'm very hopeful. When I look at the fact that, with raising the awareness about disinformation, I see more people leveraging those critical thinking skills, thinking about information, I am more hopeful. But I also know that the threat is real, and that democracy is not something that you can let alone. It's something that we have to continue to fight for and hold people accountable to the values that we profess. We have to continue to do that. So I am hopeful, but I'm also very, very realistic that there's a lot more threats out there and a lot more leaders of countries around the world who don't think that that's the path that they want to follow, who think that there's a more expedient path by being more of a controlling person over their countries, and that we're going to constantly be in battle over that, frankly. So hopeful, but realistic at the same time that the challenge is real and the challenge continues to grow.